Hey there, deep divers. It's Julie B, and today I'm diving into episode 4 of The Institute, The Box. The extent of the Institute's abuse of the kids is becoming increasingly extreme and disturbing, with the depiction of the dream box, the deprivation tank, and the cover up of the death of Greta. And as I had predicted, Tim's scrutiny of Annie's death is the catalyst leading him to investigate the Institute, so I believe he will ultimately help the kids there, and at least some of them will make it out alive in the end. So without further ado, let's get into it. In the 4th episode, 3 new recruits show up, a teenager named Harry and a younger set of twins named Greta and Gerda. Sigsbee is on to Hendrix, still trying to develop PC in the kids, remembering that he had a theory that twins might be able to amp up each other's psychic abilities, especially PC, or precognition. Hendrix says that he agreed with Sigsbee that such research would be impractical, but clearly that's not what he really thinks. The question remains, why did the Institute pull the plug on PC research? You'd think this would be an area of intense interest that they could exploit, much like they're exploiting the kids' TP and TK abilities. Harry is belligerent and pushes little Avery as Luke and Nikki step in to confront him and defend the younger child. Stackhouse moves to intervene, but Sigsbee stops him. He says, "What if they get damaged?" which is a bizarre way to describe human beings, instead of saying, "What if they get hurt?" To these sociopaths, the kids are just a commodity to be used and later thrown away. Sigsbee isn't concerned. Part of their experimentation is that they always watch the kids via camera when they first arrive and interact with each other alone at first. They observe how the kids respond to stress, and she calls this a calculated risk. The guards still don't intervene when Harry starts to charge at Nikki. Then George trips him with a food tray and he faceplants as Nikki climbs on his back to hold him down. Then Harry has to throw up. He seems to be having a bad reaction to the chemical that the snatch teams use to drug and abduct the kids. More on that later. Luke is able to read Harry's mind. He knows Harry had been thinking about his football coach, so Avery realizes that he's TP now in addition to TK. But Luke tells him to keep it quiet. He has to hide it because if he gets sent to back half, their escape plan will be blown. At the Dennison police station, Tim tells the chief that an overdose doesn't fit with Annie, who he found dead in episode 3 next to an empty bottle of liquor and some pills. He points out that Annie was never high or caught stealing alcohol, and that she'd told Tim that mind-altering substances dull the sharpness of her purpose, which is why she wouldn't take antipsychotics. The chief is far too quick to dismiss Tim's points and shut down any investigation into Annie's death, dismissing her as, quote, batshit crazy. And while she definitely had delusions, a decent police chief would still at least do the bare minimum and agree to a talk screen as Tim requests. He says their department can't afford the cost, and it would be a waste of time and money. He also says that the last night knocker thought he saw all kinds of things that weren't real, that it does something to your mind, which kind of feels like it could be gaslighting. The chief also notes that he understands that Tim feels a personal connection to Annie because of his mentally ill mother, and orders him to take a night off to catch up on sleep, implying that he's losing his grip on reality. As Tim leaves, without saying a word, the chief exchanges an odd look with Drew, the cop. I think the chief and Drew could be in on a cover-up of what the Institute is really doing. Annie herself once said that maybe the chief is in on it, and maybe they all are. I think she was off base on that. I don't believe Wendy is in on it based on her willingness to help Tim investigate the Institute. She also admits to Tim that she never saw Annie drink alcohol, and tips him off that a crew from the dump is calling to haul her tent away the next day. This gives him an opportunity to get there first and investigate the scene of her death. But we shouldn't be quick to dismiss everything Annie says, like the chief does, just because she was overly paranoid and thought everyone might be in on it. Going through Annie's things, Tim finds a map of the Institute grounds, including a guarded bridge and a spot where Tim can view the buildings with the smoke, which Annie must have found suspicious. It also shows the red steps are close to the Institute, and this is where some teenagers were found dead, supposedly having drowned some years before. But as I said in a previous deep dive, I think that the Institute killed those kids and dumped their bodies there to make it look like an accidental drowning. The close proximity between the red steps and the Institute, as seen on the map in this episode, strengthens my theory. Tim also finds a newspaper clipping about the supposed Red Steps drownings that implies that this is just the latest example of such a tragedy at that location, which I believe could hint to us that the Institute has staged other fake drownings there. Finally, Tim finds a can with lipstick on it and notes that the bottle of alcohol doesn't have any. Later, at Wendy's house, Tim shows these items to Wendy, who admits that she never saw Annie without her lipstick. Tim believes that someone could have funneled the alcohol down her throat to shut her up, noting that she knew about Senator Ramsey dying in a plane crash before the news broke on TV. He also questions how the teenagers really died, and Wendy shows him a yearbook which cryptically printed the French phrase Notre pain under their names, meaning our bread. And by the end of the episode, Tim has borrowed Wendy's car and uses Annie's map to investigate the vicinity of the Institute. As I predicted in my earlier deep dives, Annie really is the catalyst putting Tim on the Institute's trail, even though she actually warned him to stay away from it. He finds a rusty old fence that had said, "No trespassing," but with most of the letters faded, it now looks like Notre pain. It's unclear what the meaning of this phrase is as it pertains to the kids, but it does seem like a sign that they didn't actually die at the Red Steps, but at the Institute instead. Now, this episode derives its title from the infamous dream box, where Luke is taken prematurely so that Hendrix can test his theory that he's already TP and has PC potential. Hendrix tells Luke that this is the essential heart of what we do here. This goes to why you're here. Indeed, the dream box is normally the last stop before a kid is sent to back half because it unlocks more of their latent psychic abilities, and what goes on in back half is the reason why the kids are there. Hendrix describes the Dreambox experience as garbage day, when they show kids images that help them clean house, let go of personal traumas, sources of psychic pain. Hendrix says that psychic power is activated by physical pain, but he says that joining the hum, the reason why the kids are there, requires divorcing yourself from your body, which makes physical pain a hindrance. So instead, they inflict psychic pain, and once they connect to the hum, that pain stops, giving them an incentive to give into the process rather than fight it. So this is easily the most abusive experiment yet. Strapped in the chair and injected with more mysterious chemicals, Luke is shown a series of disturbing and unsettling images. He also sees part of a conversation he had with his parents on his last night with them, including his dad referencing the famous Nietzsche quote about looking into the abyss and the abyss looking back into you, which I discussed in my first deep dive. It invokes the danger of being consumed by darkness when one is in close proximity to it. Conversely, Luke's mother had a more positive outlook, telling him that his brain and what it can do is a gift. Indeed, it can be a gift, if he can manage to harness its power in a positive way and avoid being consumed by the darkness around him at the Institute. Later, Avery visits Luke in his room and says he's psychically connected himself to Shaw over in the back half. The two of them hold hands so that Avery can take Luke with him in a sense, and they both go to see her. She can see them too and shows them around, giving us a much-awaited reveal of at least some of the back half. She and all the other recruits there have dark circles under their eyes and wear jumpsuits like prisoners, and she says everyone there is in a daze. The hum can be faintly heard in the background, and she says that back there it's pretty much all you can hear. But they get free candy, alcohol, and cigarettes without having to earn tokens. And all they really do is gather for movie night, a strange experience in which they close their eyes and see things from an external person's point of view, feeling like they're doing whatever that person is doing. They encounter Iris, who looks especially dazed and sickly, and doesn't seem to recognize Luke at first. Avery tells Luke he can sense that something is really wrong inside her head. Shaw shares that movie nights can make their heads pretty clear at first, but then they take their toll as they cause worsening headaches, and Iris has been through too many of them. Shaw says they'll probably move Iris on soon. First, she'll lead a sparkler night, and then they'll move her to the recovery room, the place where the hum is coming from. The meaning of sparkler nights is not yet revealed as of this episode, but there's one thing I was sure of when I watched this scene. The so-called recovery room is not there for the purpose of rehabilitating the kids to send them home. In my live stream that week, I said that I believed that the kids in that room are in a comatose state, consistent with the coma theory that I put forth in my first episode deep dive. I pointed out this scene from the end of the opening credits as backup for my theory in that deep dive. A person wheeling a child in on a bed into a room full of other people in beds. And this scene strengthened my theory, as Avery senses something bad on the other side of that door, not wanting to try to see what's there and snapping himself and Luke out of their telepathic state with Shaw. Later, Sigsbee comes to talk to Luke alone and wants to do so outside, despite a downpour beginning. She pumps Luke for information on Hendrix, putting him through the dream box early. And he correctly surmises that she doesn't trust Stackhouse and Hendrix, which is why she pushes to have this conversation outside in the rain, where those guys can't hear. Also in this episode, Luke approaches Maureen again and continues trying to win her over onto the side of the kids. This time, she shows him to an area where they can talk without the cameras hearing them. Luke notes that she's the only one working here who feels ashamed, which Avery must have told him from reading her mind. He asks her why she doesn't blow the whistle, and she replies, "To who? You have no idea what these people are capable of." This strengthens my theory that the Institute is part of a CIA or military black op, so there's no one to blow the whistle to. And we did see these photos of Sigsbee's mystery boss shaking hands with President Reagan and a young George W. Bush. If their connections go as high as the presidency, then whistleblowing would indeed be difficult. Luke brings up Maureen's late son. This must have been her big secret that Avery told him about in a previous episode, that she had lost a son. He appeals to her as a mother and reminds her that while he isn't her son Jacob, he could be, and so could anybody else there. In other words, how would she feel if her own child had been subjected to this place? This is a smart tactic on Luke's part, but Maureen insists that she can't do anything to help, that she's a glorified janitor. He maintains that she's stronger than she thinks, continuing to chip away at her reserves with each conversation. In a surprising development, Luke demonstrates the start of precognition abilities when he dreams about Harry attacking Greta before it happens for real. He rushes to Harry's room, yelling for help, but they arrive too late. Harry hits Greta with a hand weight, and she looks clearly deceased as Tony tases Harry. Harry had been belligerent and throwing up on and off for the whole episode, so this violent act may be part of a bad reaction to the drugs that the Institute gives to the kids, including during his first testing session. The next morning, Sigsbee tells a ridiculous cover story to the kids at breakfast, that Harry struck Greta purely by accident. She only suffered mild head trauma, and all three will make a full recovery. In true sociopathic fashion, she doesn't care about those kids at all. She's just focused on not allowing the incident to affect or put in jeopardy the important work we're all doing, as she puts it. And she says that anyone who contradicts what she's saying is lying and should be reported. Sounds like a dystopian leader. By tipping off the guards that the twins had been in danger, Luke unfortunately makes them aware that he's telepathic and concealing that from them. As a result, Tony takes Luke to an oxygen deprivation tank, where he and Hendrix interrogate him. It appears that they also pump nitrogen into the tank while removing the oxygen, and they repeatedly do this to the point of Luke feeling his lungs about to collapse. They ask him questions to try to get him to read their minds and admit he's telepathic, but he refuses to comply. Eventually, he collapses onto the floor of the tank. This is by far the most disturbing act of abuse we've seen yet, as Luke struggles for air and is clearly in pain. Closing out the episode, Sigsbee confronts Hendrix about taking Luke to the dream box early, having figured out that he's running Luke through the PC track. Hendrix admits to it and tells her that it was Stackhouse's idea, that he plans to sell Luke off to the highest bidder once he's built him into a precog. Sigsbee wants to put a stop to it by sending Luke to the back half immediately, and she's confident that she can handle it because she believes he's hiding telepathic abilities. Hendrix says it's a huge risk to connect him to the hum before he's got access to his TP. Clearly, this is a dangerous thing that they're doing to the kids in general in the back half, but in this case, I'm guessing it could be lethal and kill a kid before they've made use of his powers if they send them back too early. When Hendrix says they need to find a way to prove he's TP, Sigsbee says to leave that to her, which she'll later take care of in the next episode. And another development that continues in episode 5 is teased with a cliffhanger ending, as Avery reads Maureen's mind and tells Luke he knows what's behind the recovery room door now. We see a glimpse of it here, Maureen wheeling a girl in a bed into a room, just like the shot that's been shown at the end of the opening credits in every episode all along, which again, I pointed to in my episode 1 deep dive as evidence for my theory that they've been keeping kids there in comas. And this closing scene gave me all the confirmation I needed for my coma theory, as I discussed in my live stream for episode 4. So that was my breakdown of the Institute episode 4, The Box. Now, what are your thoughts and theories on this series? Let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. And until next time, keep on deep diving and let's see what we can uncover together.